Well, hello, that's me again. Today is October 27. It is Thursday, and boy, do we have things to discuss. But before I proceed, I need to immediately dispel some worries, and I get those messages periodically on my discussion boards at my blog, and people ask me directly, and they are worried, which is understandable because they think, and I'm not gonna call or name the source, so to speak, which is absolutely unreliable and basically makes shit up as he goes. And but there was a piece of news which is circulating now for a few days, and people ask me, is the United States ready to basically do the preventive strike, nuclear strike against Russia? Because somebody somewhere, and supposedly a reputable source, which he is not, stated that there are signs that Pentagon and the United States are preparing this preventive nuclear strike. It's absolute bullshit, and this is basically one of the examples of how to use the heightened emotional background and completely keep people on dopamine dependent on all those kind of news, quote unquote, in order to improve the number of clicks or visitors who basically visit the websites and blogs and what have you of those people who write about this. Let me explain to you why these signs of impending doom and impending nuclear strike on Russia by the United States is a complete baloney. This is what is this all about. It has been announced actually at long ago, and listen what I say, read my lips. It was planned in advance, including the NATO conference on the nuclear containment, which was also planned in advance, and which decided to move those improved thermonuclear B-61s into Germany, which already has nuclear weapons there. Those are free-falling bombs. But look at this. NATO to kick off nuclear drills involving B-52 bombers on Monday. It was on October 14. What is most important about this is the fact that the fact of those drills, nuclear drills, and that they are planned and do not necessarily create the hysteria or panic in Russia was acknowledged by Russian Defense Ministry, which provided this feedback to all major Russian news outlets and stated, yeah, they've been planning this for a long time now, so we know they're going to do their drills, we'll do ours. And while NATO was doing this, I don't know who invents those titles, steadfast noon, I mean, probably those people get their admiral or general ranks by inventing absolutely stupid titles for their all kinds of drills and maneuvers, but Russians a few days ago held their own strategic containment forces drills too, and they showed that yeah, two can play the game, but it's obvious that it was nothing more than drill. It was just merely demonstration. Nobody was planning any kind, and there were no signals of United States, trying to, strike Russia with the preventive nuclear strike. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And most importantly, the fact that some admiral or somebody else visited American strategic missile submarine of the higher class, the reason those rumors are being spread and speculated upon to improve, obviously, the internet traffic is very simple. People do not understand that there is no necessity, especially for the submarine nuclear deterrent, be that Russian or American. They operate pretty much on the same principles. There is no necessity to visit and present some kind of signs that the United States is about to strike Russia, because all strategic missile submarines in their patrol areas, I'm not going to be telling you where they are, but believe me, they are there, and they are constantly on their patrol there, be that Russian nuclear power strategic missile submarines or American ones, and all of them are in the immediate readiness to launch the deterrent. Simple as that. The immediate meaning that once they get the word, in Russian it was called the Twitter word, there were other names for that, they will take about, it depends on the submarine, it depends on the conditions and all things of this nature, but it will take about 25 to 30 minutes depending on the circumstances to launch. There are some possibilities to launch almost immediately, but yeah, and in the older times, at the times when actually Ohio and Delta 3 submarines have been coming out, which was in the late 70s and early 80s, the idea was that a submarine had to be in the hovering mode at the depths of around, depending on 30 to 50 meters, to develop the launch data properly. So today, with the newest and extremely advanced navigational complexes and the appropriately very accurate information for the missiles, that could be launched probably faster, but again, I'm speculating again, guys. I was taught and I have the actually advanced graduate degree in this, specifically at that type of submarines. So here we are. I make my statement on this, so no, there is no any indication whatsoever that there is any kind of impending nuclear strike, because obviously they know that it's going to end up bad very much for the United States, because it will cease to exist. So once we get this over with, so let's start dealing with this. And this is, again, Mr. Putin, Vladimir Putin, speaking about on a Valdai conference, which is being held right now as we speak. And this is kind of an international conference. All kinds of people will get there and speak to each other, and Vladimir Putin traditionally speaks there. Look what he stated today. This is the summary. I don't need to go to the full speech. And here it is. Here's Vladimir Putin speaking at Valdai today, and he says that U.S. has nothing left to offer the world. And here it is. They, American leaders, now have no creative ideas to promote positive development, Putin argued. They simply have nothing to offer the world beyond maintaining their dominance. And basically, when he speaks about this, he, you can easily find his speech, you can easily find the main thesis, if you wish, of this speech. He speaks very correctly that the West, dominating for the few hundred years the world, they developed this, the second-class citizen, second-class people attitude towards the rest of the world. And, for example, you can say the same thing about, for example, relation and attitudes between the West and Russia. And this is despite the fact that the West goes to Russia for the last 1,000 years, and there were people who are much more potent than the United States Army who went there. They got their ass kicked, and and they are very unsatisfied with those, Untermensch in the East, who Russians are, in their opinion, and they think everybody else are Untermensch. So, and Vladimir Putin was very specific today when speaking at Valdai that basically they really live in the delusion of the exceptionalism, while having no exceptional qualities anymore, which is absolutely true. And I am the witness to all that. I live in the United States for 30 years now, and believe me, the country which it is now, it has nothing to do in common with, and nothing in common with what it used to be even throughout 90s. This is a different country. I don't recognize the United States anymore. We immigrated at some point of time to the country which was actually, there was a lot to be admired. Absolutely. There was a lot to be admired, be that in the scientific, achievement, industrial achievement, or in terms of the, indeed, democracy, what looked like democracy, what looked like the pluralist society with the freedom of expression and speech. It's not here anymore. It's absolutely different. And fact is, this is the decline and degeneration so profound that, Putin speaks about this directly. I wrote books on that, many of them. I'm writing another one on how horrible it is now. And the only thing they do, they have, all this, idea about them being pretty much exceptional. They are not. Europe is turning into the shithole really fast, and that's where it will go. And that's what it happened to it, and it will lose its industrial economic potential, and which already have been again in decline for a while. So when you look at the West today, I mean, It's not the West it used to be. So, and this has been predicted, and nothing new about it. And that brings us a little bit more to the larger issue of how Pentagon views, for example, Russia. And today, Mr. Austin, the Secretary of Defense, so Biden National Defense Strategy tackles China, Russia, nuke deterrence. And I will start from quoting Mr. Austin. I don't think so he's a very competent man, but hey, what do I know? And here he says that national defense strategy bluntly describes Russia as an acute threat, and we chose the word acute carefully. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin told reporters, unlike China, Russia can systemically challenge the United States over the long term, but Russian aggression does pose an immediate and sharp threat to our interests and values. And Russian President Vladimir Putin, reckless war of choice against Ukraine, the worst threat to European security since the end of World War II, has made that very clear for the whole world. I don't know what whole world does Mr. Austin have in mind, especially after he and his buddies in Pentagon have been warned about the dirty bomb, and people in London too. But the funny thing, not about this delirium and bullshit he spews about Russia, it is about the fact that basically there is no defense strategy in the United States. It cannot exist in principle. And the reason it cannot exist in principle, because there are no serious national security threats from the state actors against the United States, due to its geographic position and due to the still existing in some form, although it's declining, of the mutually assured destruction. The only force which can remotely be called the defensive force of the United States is its Navy. Because obviously the only state actor threat which could be basically performed or shown or exhibited towards the United States will be over the ocean, and of course over this airspace, but that's about it. So, and that is why the only force which really defends the United States, even remotely, is the U.S. Navy and U.S. Coast Guard. Because the United States is surrounded by the South, however unstable and drug-infested Mexico, but which is militarily is a basically very weak country, and on the north with the very friendly and in fact just suburb of the United States, which is called Canada. So, in terms of ground forces, which Americans are not very good at it to start with, the United States should have only the National Guard and some, air and armor component there, just in case, Canadians take too much of hashish and they decide to, basically invade the United States. That's what it needs for. Other than that, that's the whole thing. I mean, United States doesn't know what real threat is. And Pentagon, from the latest, the lowest ground to the top generals, they have no clue what they're talking about, as I already stated, because they don't have the national identity built around defense. Unlike it is the case with the most continental people, United States doesn't know what continental war is. And no matter how we spin it, no matter how it is performed, or how it's discussed, or whatever kind of sophistry is used, United States record in the real continental war, which is a large combined arms warfare against the first-rate state actors, is dismal. Period. As that. United States, and last 20 years you saw yourself, especially with Afghanistan. So if anybody continues to think that the United States is somehow is the military power which can use ground forces, it cannot. I've been on this record for many years now, and today we all have that. I mean, it just, no matter what they say, this finest fighting force in history, as I already stated, when Obama stated this, many people in their graves, starting from Caesars and starting from Alexander the Great and continue to Napoleon, Kutuzov, and Manstein or Zhukov, would start to rotate in their coffins or whatever their graves they have there, because to say this stupid thing is absolutely amazing. The United States loses its ground wars and then it declares itself the strongest military force in history. It is not, and the fact is it never was. Except for the United States Navy, which was a dominant and geopolitics shaping force for the last in the 20th century. There's no denial of that. But yet, here we are. Lord Austin again talks about all this defensive strategy while it is not defensive. All American strategy, always, from the inception, with the short exception of the Civil War, when there was a real serious threat of the invasion, and there is basically Russia helped the United States on that issue, but point is, it's all expeditionary warfare. It is all imperialist wars. It is all invasion of the remote countries, while the metropole, the main, the United States proper, doesn't know what war is. Nobody knows. And as I already stated, if your national identity, if your basically cultural code, cultural DNA is not built around it, so don't even try. I mean, you're going to be ridiculed, or you're going to continue to receive those Afghanistan 1.0, then 2.0, and that's what it is. Because no American serviceman ever fought defending its home. That's it. It's simple as that. And if you don't defend your country, there's no defensive strategy. The rest of it is just merely offensive. That's why people always have this wonderful joke, and it's called, why do we call those people Secretary of Defense? They have to be called the Secretary of the Offense. And basically this absolutely degenerate view, military view, actually permeated the whole, so to speak, cultural milieu in the in Pentagon. And as a result, today, United States proper is indeed not defended against the strikes. Well, they didn't expect people to react properly on that, didn't they? Because they thought that they are so great. But United States air defense and anti-ballistic missile defense is a joke, basically. You don't have to take my word on that. I made basically a very specific video on that, on the issue based on the Congressional Budget Office. And so if we go like this and you begin to look at the both political, military and other situations developing in the United States, you immediately arrive to the fact that what everybody knows and what Mr. Putin says today. The only thing they have is this sense of exceptionalism, which, while being not exceptional at all. In fact, as you already noticed, I do not report much on those, what would be termed as the battles of the local significance in Donbass, because yeah, United States best proxy ever in history got its ass handed to it by grossly outnumbered Russian troops, and now we have the strategic initiative completely in Russian corner, and Putin continues to say that, yeah, we're the same people, and whatever it means, with Ukrainians. But he absolutely correct while stating today also that Russia is not the enemy of the West. Russia simply written the West off. You don't write off your enemies, you fight them. But in this case, the West is committing suicide, including the United States. So why should you actually interrupt your enemy, quoting Napoleon, yeah, that insignificant guy, when it commits suicide. This is what happens. And speaking of which brings us me actually to the main point of the what I was going to say before Mr. Putin's speech thesis has been released, and this is what I want to read to you. Here is from my book, quoting Dana Frank, excellent book about the Central America and U.S. operations there. And here it is. In one of the indictments of America's lack of competence, never mind malignant intentions, Dana Frank, describing her experience with U.S. foreign policy elites, made a grim discovery. And here's I quote her. I was disturbed to learn that much of the foreign policy of the United States Congress is developed by 26-year-olds who, however well-trained or well-meaning, are each responsible for U.S. relations with the entire world, although in the Senate they might only have half the world, with the exception of the committee staffers who are more specialized and who just have entire regions. Those aides answered in turn to the legislative directors of chiefs of staff. It is horrifying admission. And you know why? Because indeed we have the case of the, and I am on a record. I not only on record, I did actually number of the studies on that. American humanities higher education is a disaster. It's a catastrophe. It is basically a reproductive machine of the ignoramuses and brainwashed people. If not all of them necessarily, but most of them, you have those people who believe in this bullshit of democracy, of the values, of all that crap, which is there, by the way, in the US National Defense Strategy. Can you believe this? So, which is actually, I mean, makes Mr. Mao and Stalin blush, because nobody even in those countries spoke about those kind of things when speaking about military or foreign policy strategies. But here we are. And to understand why I concentrate on this, it is enough to state that, for example, Institute of the Study of War, this is Kagan organization, this is, you know about this Institute of the Study of War. They don't study war there, they won't understand it anyway, and including those people of the big stars such as Mr. Petraeus, Mr. King, they have no clue about the real massive combined arms operation within the framework of continental war and within the framework of the continental geopolitics. But this is the organization which is used by the United States and Western media outlets to quote them on the development of the strategic and operational environment in the Ukraine today, which of course they lie. They are not in the business of studying war. They won't understand again. And I am on the record. Mr. Petraeus won't understand the difference between Kinjal and Zircon, and he won't understand the difference on the impact of those things because he wasn't taught it. And let alone those staffers, and let alone those Kagan people, neocon cabal which operates there, which basically does only narratives. And that's what they sell. That's what they are being quoted with about, or when the US media start to describe situation, which is of course false. But going back to Dana Frank and those 26-year-olds, look what I got there. And people started to, in my blog, started to kind of, point my attention towards this. Look at this. Here's the guy of the of the Institute for Study of War. He is senior analyst and Russia team lead, Mr. Mason Clark. And yeah, look at him. He's senior, all right? I will show you in the end. He is something like, I don't know, 25 years old. I will show you my 26-year-old photograph for comparison. But, and how this guy, who has an undergraduate bachelor's degree in some kind of bullshit like international relations, which is a waste of time in any Ivy League school in the United States, he is the guy who runs, so to speak, he is the team lead on Russia in the Institute of the Study of War. So if you look if you look at his CV, curriculum vitae, look what he is doing here. He is developing military policy analyst with demonstrated experience with research and writing for publication for a policymaker audience. Skilled in policy analysis, open source intelligence, and Russian military and political affairs. Strong research experience and bachelor with honors in international studies from American University School of International Service. So, in other words, the guy has no education whatsoever and zero skills for any kind of the open source intelligence. I'll give you a hint immediately. If you do not have a serious military background, you will not be able to conduct serious open source intelligence. If you don't have any serious intelligence background, you will not be able to conduct open source intelligence. You just have to be a professional. So the guy basically, one of the major achievements was actually, guess what, being a librarian. He worked in library. So, but let's go further. Institute of the Study of War doesn't stop there. Look what they have next. That's another one of them. After Mr. Whatever the hell name, Mason posted his bullshit about Russia, which he knows shit basically, here's another, Natalia Bugayeva, Russian fellow, non-resident, and former Russia team lead. She also from the Institute for the Study of War, and she's talking about Putin. She's talking about, this girl, I don't know, when was she last time in the kindergarten, but I don't think so, it was a long time ago. And look at this, we also opened curriculum vitae of Natalia, who is, by the way, from Kiev, and as you might understand, you can only imagine what kind of the analysis this kid provides. Natalia is the author of How We Got Here with Russia, the Kremlin's Worldview and Putin's Offset, the Kremlin Geopolitical Adaptation since 2014. Her written work and interviews have been featured in media outlets including Foreign Policy, PBS, New Hour, NBC, Fox News, Hill, BBC, blah, 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 blah. As Institute of Study of War Development Director from 2016 to 2019, she also led growth, effort, and planning for major events, including the ISW Security Conference. I read you, Dana Frank, those 26-year-olds. So we have people with zero, I mean literally zero experiences and academic backgrounds in anything. And again, if anybody wants to ask about my background, and you can look at me at that when I was the same age as Mr. Mason, and that's me in 1988. By that time, I was XO of the ship, and I was about to step in as the acting flag specialist of the separate brigade. And my academic background, the same as of many of my classmates, was twofold. The first one, which was undergraduate degree, was in military science, and actually it came with the diploma and specialization of the tactical unit commander of the naval infantry. I have the Marine Corps, what would be called in the United States, background. And fact is, a couple of my classmates actually went to serve in the naval infantry, and actually took part, for example, as one of them later, not just naval infantry units, one of my classmates ended up in the Second Chechen War commanding their regiment of the Sobor. But it's the separate story, but my basically military engineering degree was, and I repeat it again, for those people who do not understand, that's what you get when you go out. It was the graduate degree, specialization in the gyro-inertial navigational complexes of the strategic naval missile systems. In fact, my background is basically in how to blow the United States to smithereens. I have master's degree in that, and this is about our type of submarines which we were being prepared at that time was the Delta 1 and Delta 2 Project 667B and BD strategic nuclear missile submarines, but many of us went to serve on the multi-purpose subs, and many ended up being commanding nuclear and diesel subs. And I chose to go to the basically surface fleet, and many people do not understand the dramatic difference I addressed it between the, for example, Soviet Coast Guard and US Coast Guard. Soviet Coast Guard was essentially a separate navy unto itself, armed to the hilt. And that's what people don't understand. And this is what you come out, and then you begin to write books and speak about matters which you kind of have an idea, despite the fact that, of course, many years have passed by since last time wore uniform. In fact is, I live in a different country, and the country I serve doesn't exist anymore. But that's the way it is. And now you want to tell me that all those boys and girls who have humanities degrees in nothing, because they have degrees in what normal people with their IQ above room temperature can obtain basically by simply reading books within their 1-2 semesters and be actually quite well already educated on this matter, especially those people who are autodidacts who can teach themselves. So, but these are the people who define and who provide this, so to speak, expertise. I don't even want to go there. And that's why you have the situation when you have basically ignorant people running or rather having their input in the running the country, such as the United States, into the ground. And do not forget, most of those people who are on the political top in the United States, be it legislature or executive powers or what have you, they are as ignorant as those young kids who are 26 and try to run the country, so to speak. Or basically, and when even Donald Trump says that they are well educated, no. Most of the American diplomats, most American geopolitical thinkers, so to speak, most, so to speak, geopolitical academy in the United States is not well educated. Most of it, not all, but 90% of it are people who are absolutely ignorant about the world outside, and most importantly, and what is the saddest part of it, of it all, is they're most ignorant on their own country. And that is why they became the butt of the jokes, but also they are dangerous. And that is why the United States is so dangerous. And Mr. Putin today, speaking about this in Valdai, he stated that, yes, we are in a very dangerous situation, which equals in terms of volatility to the post-World War II situation. And he is absolutely correct. And one of the main drivers of this is the ignorance of the Western elites and inability to recognize that the West is over as we knew it for the last 500 years, for all its magnificent achievements and for all of it shaping the modern world. But it is not the case anymore. And this is what I wanted to tell you today about, and it was very important. But I want to reiterate, don't worry, nobody is launching yet. At least, so we'll hope that it stays this way. So, and this is my talk for you today, guys, and those who like what I do, please support me on on the Patreon, and subscribe to my channel, guys, and I'll be talking to you later, and have the nice coming weekend, guys. Bye bye.